Here we go. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab Freddy Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with the Saturday Night Sit Down. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab Freddy Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with another live episode of the Saturday Night Sit Down. And tonight, I got the honor of sitting down with life coach, author, and the founder of Elevate Your Lifestyle, Mr. Neal Williams. What's going on, my man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me, Freddie.
No, of course, man. It is an honor to have you here. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on my show. You know, we were lucky enough to meet up recently in the CLS group with Craig Siegel and a bunch of them. And, you know, we had a phone call a couple of weeks ago, and I really admire and love everything that's going on with your life, right? Your mindset and how you've been able to turn things around and stuff like that and get to where you are now. So for the people who may not know you or who don't follow you, just share a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself for them.
Sure. And thank you for that. Thank you. High praise, and I appreciate that. My name's Neal Williams. And, like you said, I have a business, Elevated Lifestyle Academy. We work with families, specialize in working with families with young men or teenage boys, ages 15 to 35. We help them transition to a healthier lifestyle. So we work with families who are dealing with addiction and things like that. So we don't work with families where everything's going well. We work with families who are in a challenging place, and we love it, and I love it. And the reason I do that is because I'm also a recovered addict and alcoholic. That's one of the reasons I do what we do. And so that's where the passion comes from. I got clean from drugs and alcohol 10 years ago. It was 10 years on March 29th. And with that lifestyle came, a lot of behaviors that I normally wouldn't do. They don't sit right with my value system, and they don't align with what I was taught and how I was raised. And so all of that stuff had to change. And so the journey began with sobriety, and it's brought me to where I am now, working with families and helping them put things back together. And so it's just been a lot of fun.
Oh, most definitely. I think that's most rewarding and things like that, especially when you come from that situation, you know what it's like. And that's where people really do that connection. That's why I love doing this show and going out there, because I know I may not be able to connect with everyone, but I'm sure like through different guests and stuff, who have different experiences, and somebody may be able to relate to you in something that you're going through. I've seen, alcoholism in my family is runs rampant, and they love to drink, and it's a party thing, and I get it. And for me, it's never been that kind of scene, because I've seen all the negative parts of it, right? Like growing up as a kid, and then the fights that broke out in the family and things like that, and just
physical, verbal, or both.
Everything, man, everything. Yeah. I've seen it up and down. There was. I would always remember one of my uncles, man, who passed away. Rest in peace, Uncle Hector. He was a drunk. He would drink all the time, but he wasn't one of those like angry drunks. He was just a lovable, caring guy. I mean, I love him so dearly. I would see him as a superhero, because even like there was one time there was a fight that broke out in my mom's house, because of a bunch of drinking, and the knives pulled out, and he was the one that jumped up and came in and to protect everybody, and so I've seen things like that, and just the verbal abuse when people are going there and just speaking. And that's one of the things is that I take from alcohol, is like, I just don't like how it changes you, right? I see how people change so much, like somebody that I can know as being the sweetest, most gentle, caring person, and then after a couple of drinks, it's just horrific monster that it's hard to believe that they're the same person,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll drink on occasion, I have a beer here and there and stuff, but I've never been one to, and everybody in my family knows that they kind of tease me a little bit about it, but they understand where I come from. But it just because I seen that side of it, and that's kind of what latched on to me and kind of really imprinted in my brain when it came to alcohol.
And I've seen alcohol do two things. It'll exacerbate existing things about people. So people who are already selfish, when they drink, they become more selfish, or people who are aggressive, when they drink, they become more aggressive. And I've also seen that different side, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And it talks about that in some AA literature. It talks about that. And so it's interesting to see how different people respond in different ways. And in addition to that, what you were talking about growing up, your response was, I don't want any of that. But there's so many who follow suit. They follow in those footsteps. Even I know lots of guys who have said, I hated my dad. I hated my dad and the way he drank. And I saw the way he behaved, and I saw the way he drank, and I never wanted to be that. And here I am, trying to get sober and trying to quit drinking. And so it's it's a vicious thing. Alcoholism is.
Oh yeah, man. I've seen it's taken a lot of people that I care about. One of my other uncles, well, two of my uncles, they already failed because of their livers, and just the excessive drinking. One uncle of mine recently, um, got jaundice, and then his liver failed on him. He went into a coma. It was just all this thing, and now he's in a nursing home. And barely can. It's hard to see. Like, I know he remembers me, like he's very happy to see me, but sometimes he refers to me as a girl, or and different things, because his just mind isn't there 100%, and it's just so sad, because again, it's one of my uncles that I love dearly, and I just remember that again. This is the complete opposite of who I used to see somebody just always so joyful, running around and happy with others and partying stuff, but just because of the alcohol. I know that there's times when they're just going cold turkey, right? And he wake up in the morning and he's shivering, and then from the withdrawal and all this stuff, and it's so painful to see, and it's just like the only remedy to give another beer. Like it's a vicious cycle sometimes to get out of.
So is there anybody in your family who's in recovery? And second question, or second part to that question, does anybody ever ask for help?
No and no. I mean, it's really come from me. I've been so different from all that stuff. I mean, a lot of, again, it's just like on the weekends and the drinking. It's like a part of the lifestyle,
Yeah.
And it comes to those points. Like I've always said that to, like, different parties and different events. Like I've always been one to get there, and then I know how to read the room, and I'm like, all right, you know what, guys, I think it's time for my family to leave. Let's go home and spend the rest of the night. And lo and behold, by the time I get to the house, I'm getting phone calls. Hey, a fight broke out, and this person went over here, and that was like, yeah, that's why I left. Let me know when everything's clears up. I love you guys and take care. No, but it's just I'm trying to stay away from that aspect if I can.
Yeah, it'd be better for it. Well,
Yeah,
I didn't grow up in that environment. I created that environment for myself, and I don't think I meant to. Some people may enjoy that. I don't. I don't enjoy the chaos. It came with, I was looking for something. I was trying to fill a void. I was trying to fill a void deep down inside of me. I didn't see it that way. The way I saw it was, there's voices and thoughts that I don't like, and they come nonstop. And I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, no matter what I say or do, no matter what. I can't seem to feel okay. But when I drink or get high, those things go away. And so I'm going to do that. And I kept returning to it. No matter what chaos ensued, I would just drink it away, or I would snort it away, or smoke it away, and create yet still more problems and further the chaos. But still thinking that if I just manage it, or if I do it a little bit differently, or maybe if I just try a different drug, maybe that will fix what I've been trying to fix, and I'll find some peace. And you never do. And so that's the insanity, and it created that lifestyle that you're describing, these events and these nonstop, just over and over. It's like, oh God, somebody tell Neal to leave. Like, we don't know what to do with him. And the only way out is to remove the alcohol and the substances, but then to do more work, because people don't realize that it's a deeper thing than just the use.
Right.
There's something going on. You don't just go behave like that for no reason.
Like you said, a lot of people do that because they're numbing something. They're trying to forget or get away from something, and then when you take away that stuff, they're left with the problem. So and then you don't want to deal with it, or you just don't know how to deal with that stuff. So seeing from you've been from there, right? Going from and dealing with a lot of alcohol yourself and drug use, and now turning your life around and getting clean. And part of that, right? You had to change a lot of views and outputs and what you thought it meant to be a good person, right? Or what it took to be a good man. So for you now, what are some of those things, those ideas or characteristics that you think it takes to be a good person or a good man?
To be a good person. The biggest change for me and the most important thing for me that had to change was my inward perspective
Mm,
towards life. That had to go outward. It had to stop being, what about me? What about me? It had to be, what do I have to contribute? What do I have to offer? What do I have to give? And so that's the first thing that I think makes. Sorry, my screen just went dark for some reason. Hang on.
all right, no worries.
The first thing, that's it, the perspective of it can't just be about yourself. And so I don't know any good people who live their lives thinking only about themselves. Every good man I know, every good person I know is thinking about ways that they can give back to life, give back to others, and contribute to situations. What am I here for? So it's a purposeful life. The other thing is, how do you treat others? Not just what are you contributing, but I think about how I treat other people. And I'm not 100% on this stuff, right?
Mhm.
I'm
Right,
not
right.
100% on this stuff. But every day I wake up and I'm looking for ways to help others, contribute to situations, and become a part of something that is not my idea. And that last part is pretty important for me because I had lots of ideas, I had lots of plans. Um, in adolescence, my plan was to start drinking and doing drugs, just dabbling to address the stuff I was feeling, and I would feel better and have a good time. And then it became, I didn't know how to live without this stuff. So adulthood, or late teens and early adulthood, turned into, how am I going to live like this? And that plan didn't work out. So then my plan was, I'm going to kill myself. And so I tried to kill myself when I was 19 and I failed, and that plan didn't work. And so then I went to treatment and I got sober, and I came home from treatment, and I got high the same night, and went right back to it. And I was like, what the hell? And I figured I would just manage it this time. That plan didn't work. 7 years of planning for me. And in the end, I was homeless, addicted to methamphetamine, and sleeping in the bushes with a gun and some drugs, like a loser. And I was 26 years old. All the potential in the world, great genetics, great, like, what do you, and those are my plans. So for me to be a good man, I need somebody else's plan, and I need that to come from somewhere good. And the best places I found is from God. So, the Bible, um, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, things like, I look for places where I can find wisdom that I don't possess on my own. And in doing so, I'm not saying that every single thing I read and every single thing that I learn about, I'm not saying that I agree with everything, understand everything, and adhere to everything. I am saying that I've found the places where I should dive into. And in
Right.
doing that, I've become a better person, met better people, and become a part of and align with something better than my plans. And so I get in these conversations with people nowadays, and they're like, you don't have to be a Christian to be a good man, and you don't have to do what you do in recovery to be a good man. It's like, I'm not saying you do, but
Right.
I am saying that this way has worked 100,000% better than all my other ways. And so I don't really care what anybody else has to say, because I had a moment of clarity that no one can explain to me and no one can understand but me. And that's fine. And so I think all that to say, I think the last part that makes a good man, I think it's essential that you have your own beliefs
Mm.
and that you know what you believe and that you know that you know that you know that when it comes down to it, you can't tell me what I think, believe, or know. I know, and I trust that. And so, if a man doesn't have that, what does he really have? Some good
Yeah, no,
conversation.
it's so important. Like you said, like, to have something you stand on and believe in and go for, right? It may not, people may not agree with it or see it and stuff, but I've seen that people who have, they look at, let's look at that people who, like I said, like, the Christians or the voted Christian would go and they're like, oh man, like how they like that they're so into it and it may not work for you. It may not work for you, but they're extremely happy in what they're doing, right? Like,
Yeah,
and whatever it is, and sometimes I even look at that, I'm like, I wish I could be that happy or that just like, into those things. And sometimes it's just being open minded, keeping everything open hasn't allowed me to really commit, I feel, to certain things. But it is true that you have to have something. And as I got older with my wife, I was telling her, like, as I've started to develop things that I'm not going to tolerate anymore. Those standards or those
yeah,
lines where you're like, all right, this is where it's going to be. That this is where I am as a person, and I'm not going to allow it go any which way. I'm not going to hurt anybody or offend anybody, but I need people to respect my views and values as well as I respect
yeah,
everybody else's.
yeah. I think that's a huge deal, and I think that's awesome. I think if people can at least say what they don't do and what they won't allow, you're in a good place. And from
Mm.
there, everybody has their own journey. That's what I like about coaching is I share my beliefs with people if they're interested, and um, I help people and I support them in navigating on through their own spiritual journey. And that's the coolest thing ever is watching people discover for themselves, you know?
I recently I've been blessed. I've always loved the kids. And so I go by America's Big Brother, right, for a reason. I want to be that big brother to all these kids and a mentor and try to help them down in a positive way. And I've been looking for ways to try to get back into that avenue when I was recent or get into that avenue really, right? Apart from the
Mm-hmm.
people that I see in the neighborhood. And through a good friend of mine, Mr. Carl Michelle, young executive, right? He does a lot of podcasting clubs in the inner cities of New York and things like that. And he gave me a chance to go out there and do these things. So I went out this past week, my first time, and it was amazing really sitting down there with these kids and being able to sit there and talk and impart knowledge. And as they pick it up and they run with it, and you can see that you're leaving some sort of good imprint. But apart from that, like you said about really connecting things, the biggest thing that happened that day, I had to do it, into a middle school and just some sixth graders. And we're sitting there talking, and I started talking about the passing of my grandmother and things like that, and just sharing things that happened to me and how middle school treated me and all those things. And one of the kids there, as we were wrapping up, he says, I had a really good connection with Fab. Like we just met that day, right? But he says, because I just recently lost my grandmother. And he starts sharing and talking about that, and I can see the moment when he says that it was one of those realizations where he didn't expect to be getting emotional or where this was going to go, or just kind of being to share. But now he's like, man, I got to go through with this, and I can see him fighting back the tears as he's explaining, the loss of his grandmother, until eventually he just breaks down, And it was the first time he ever said that out loud. I mean, it was so recent and fresh, but it comes down to a lot of that, like I've seen from me growing up, and I think a lot of us men growing up in general, like as I said, you can't show your feelings. Don't let nobody you sad or you're hurting, you're crying. You got to kind of bottle all those things up. And I can see it witnessing like this kid is holding it back as much as he can because he doesn't want to seem, I guess weak or anything like that. But it happens. Be emotional. Let it out. Because the more you hold these things in, these emotions, and you bottle up, like Jason Wilson always says, which one of my guys who turned me to this, is that it's an emotional incarceration. You're locking all this stuff up, and then you lash out into drugs or alcohol or all these things, trying to figure out to try to complete and deal with these feelings because you weren't taught how to deal with them. You're left alone, and then you looking around and like, man, like all these guys got it together because they're all have to play stone face when deep down inside everybody's going through craziness and just screaming for help and just want somebody to listen sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole emotional, slavery. It's just like you put yourself in a prison. And much like you were saying, people destroy themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You can make yourself physically ill. by that stuff. You know, that was hard for me because I worked this recovery program that required me to talk to a guy about stuff that I was feeling. He was like, "Let's talk about your feelings." I was like, "No." He was
Right.
like, he was like, "No, seriously." I was like, "I'm for real. No." Like, I don't like you that much. Like, we just met. And it was kind of funny, you know, because he's like a 6-year-old biker, and you know, he done some things and he shared some stuff with me. And I was like, okay, well, you know, here's how I feel about this. And he's like, you know, why do you think you feel that way? And we went deeper and deeper, and you know, that stuff was real. And now, you know, where I am in my life today, you know, I'm sensitive, dude. Like, now I've got um, you know, 12-year-old son and a wife, and um, working with families, and this is really, really serious stuff. And so my heart's just like, it's full, but at the same time, these things, the gravity of these situations, I'm well aware of what I'm in the middle of and what's going on around me. And so it's heavy stuff, and much different from that emotional prison, you know, that we were
Right.
just talking about. But you're right. You know, we need to change that. We need to do a better job of it.
Yeah, just listen, and we just need to be heard. Sometimes it's not about the answers, just being able to release that back and just let it out. Because keeping it inside just hurts so much, and it's so toxic. Now, going back to like you said, I know you were when you were 19. You said you ended up in rehab, and how long were you in there for that time?
Excuse me. So I went to so my 19th birthday, I tried to commit suicide, and that was when I failed the attempt. All that stuff happened, and so my dad was like, "Hey, you know, we need to get you some help," and or my family. And so that was the first time I went to treatment. I was there for, I think, like a little over 3 weeks. What happened, I went to treatment. I was taking a lot of benzodiazepines, like Xanax and stuff. I was taking a lot of benzos and drinking a lot of alcohol. And I was drinking, you know, I was drinking whiskey. I was 19, but I was drinking it like a 40-year-old alcoholic. And so when I went about how much I was taking and using, and so my withdrawals, I had a seizure and hit my head, my heart stopped, and so they had to revive me and all that. So it was a big event. But 3 weeks later, this was our first, as a family, this is our first experience with treatment, with addiction. Like, I didn't know what was going on. My parents didn't know what was going on. Like, we were trying to fix something we didn't have. We were clueless. And so after 3 weeks, I was like, hey guys, I'm better. Like, these people here are pretty crazy. Like, I'm good. Let's go home. And so they, you know, we all came to an agreement, and they signed me out and took me home. Not, you know, it wasn't that they were trying to tell everyone they were idiots. They didn't know what they were talking about, but we didn't understand how
Right.
serious it was. You know, we just didn't know. And so that was and I would go like several more times to treatment after that, but most of them were like my parents driving me and dropping me off and being like, you don't have a choice, and leaving.
Right.
Or
Right.
the state of Texas sent me to one or two. So um, different lengths of time, but that was there were 2 times in the beginning, that one, and then a year later I went to the same place again, and I stayed for 45 days. And those are the only 2 times that I genuinely tried, I think. There was a later one. Anyways, it just becomes, there was a lot of treatment and a lot of jail, back and forth from ages 19 to 26. And 26 was when I got picked up and I had warrants. I was on felony probation, and that was being revoked. It was just all these things had piled up, and they were done messing with me. And so that time I was gone for a little over a year, and that was when I got sober, and everything just changed after that.
So it was just, I had to be like hitting that rock bottom. There was nowhere else for you to go. There was no other escape route, no other like rehab. There was, you were left completely out of options at that point.
Yeah, and I'm a treatment is great. There's a lot of different treatment facilities. There's a lot of different levels and different options and different modalities. All this cool stuff. But if someone just has no desire, and if I'm not listening to your wonderful information, it doesn't matter how good the information is, because
Right.
I've not heard any of it. And so I wasted a lot of people's time. And so for me, I needed to be thrown into, I needed to go to jail. Like, I needed to be thrown into a cell and locked up with nowhere to go but looking up. Like, I needed that. And I needed someone to take everything from me so I wouldn't snort it, smoke it, or what. Like, I needed to be locked up. And so I needed time alone and time away to get my stuff together. And that was the best thing ever happened to me.
All right. And that's some point what people need now. I don't know if it was just, it's just a mix up of words at that what you're saying about like going to the rehab. First you said, it was your dad's idea, and they said, well, actually my family now. What was your relationship with your dad? Did you have a good relationship with him, or?
Yeah, well, so I said I went to my dad because the whole event with me trying to take my own life, I tried to drive off the ledge of this highway that was being built, and my front passenger tire blew out before I got to the ledge. So I drove home and parked in my driveway. And the next morning, my dad was the one who found my car and came and woke me up. And so that moment, so that's why I said
All right.
me and my dad, because he kind of came and he was like, dude, like, what's going on? And because I told him what happened. I didn't know, I didn't have a story. I didn't have a story. It's a really, really weird thing to try and, first of all, I it is very hard to kill yourself. It, I'm just gonna say it. It's very hard to kill yourself. And it took everything in me and some drugs and a lot of alcohol for me to have the balls to do it,
Mhm.
to really try. I mean that. And so when I failed at that, I've never felt more defeated in my entire life. And I didn't have the balls to try again. I was just like, what now? And so I didn't have a story. I went home that night, or like 4 a.m. in the morning. And so when he woke me up and asked me, I had no story. So I was just like, I this is what happened. And he just, obviously, like any father would, he lost it. And so yeah, my relationship with my family was good. So we had stuff like my mom and my dad got divorced um, around the same time, a little while after, before I um, it was around the same time. So there was other stuff going on, and my mom was sick. She had some surgeries. She had stomach problems. So there was a lot of stuff going on. My brother
Right,
was
right.
going to college, or he was gone at college playing football. So my dad has his own uh, he owns a practice or owns a small business. And so he's doing his thing. So there were so many other things happening. So it wasn't the only thing,
It's like almost everybody you could turn to wasn't there. If your mom's sick, your brother's
Well,
at college, your dad's at, well, there's practice and stuff, and you're trying to figure what's going on with you. I mean,
when I didn't really want anybody to help. I didn't want any help. I didn't. I thought I was making everything worse. Is really what I had convinced myself. I convinced myself that there's all this other stuff going on, and they've got their stuff. I should just take
you don't
me
want to
out.
burden them, because that's what it is. I think it's kind of, well, I think a lot of times is that us as guys is we don't want to share our emotions. We don't do that because we don't want to burden anybody else with our problems and feel like we're weighing them down, or causing anybody else inconvenience. So we internalize a lot of stuff, and it backfires because it blows up in our face. And a lot of times it's just that we're just reaching out. And we just need to ask, or tell somebody that we need to talk, or we need some help. And and instead of waiting to the very last minute to do that, you know. Um, so it's definitely hard, like you said, and it is hard, you know, to try to kill yourself, to try to commit suicide, because I've seen it. There's a story, right? And I don't know how to say it, but there's this Arab saying where they say a man says he wants to die. Well, then throw yourself into the ocean and you'll see yourself fighting for your life. You don't want to die. You want something inside you to die, right? And then I seen somebody else recently where it says like suicide doesn't start at the edge of the cliff. It starts when somebody feels trapped from a situation, they have no way out, and they think it's just the easiest thing to do when you're left with like no options, and you're just panic mode. And then it'll take a lot to get there for you. I think for you it was like that, hitting that rock bottom and going in there and being in that prison and seeing that. So when you were at that point where it was just like, all right, this is it, I needed to change, was there somebody that reached out to you that kind of gave you that avenue, or you were just like, what was it that was like, all right, that really led you down this path that you're on now?
Wait, could you ask? I think I'm
A little breaking up there. So I was saying, just is that when you were there, you were 26. That was, I guess, the rock bottom point for you. Now, when you got there, was it just realizing that you're at rock bottom where you need to make that change, or was it what helped you make that get you on this path now? Did somebody reach out to you, or just like, hey, you know,
sure.
how did you fall here?
Well, no, and people reached out to me for years. I don't want to pretend like I'll never pretend like people weren't trying to help me, because I had a lot going for me, and I had a lot of good relationships growing up. I played sports. I was on a lot of teams for years. And so I had really good relationships built over the years. So there were certainly people reaching out and trying to help me. Um, I respond to pain. And unfortunately, I need things to go really poorly for me to change what I'm doing. And so I needed to experience loss, and the things that really, really woke me up in the end were my brother was married. He was newlywed, and they were expecting their first child. And he told me I wasn't going to meet her because of the type of person I was. He said he didn't want someone like me around his daughter. And just my
Wow.
brother is my older brother who, I grew up with him. He taught me everything, everything my dad didn't, my brother did. And so that was really, something, because I don't think I quite understood what type of person I had become, like how much I had truly changed, and that I didn't just have some tendencies, I had fully adopted this lifestyle, and it just wasn't good. And so that, and then the final moment of the day. So I didn't really believe in God. I didn't think God existed. I thought it was just an idea, and I just didn't believe. And so March 29th, 2013, I remember I felt the same level of emptiness. I always say this the same way. I felt the same level of emptiness that I felt on the day I tried to kill myself. And so I really just got pissed off, because I felt that bad again, the exact same, after all this time and all this planning, all my different plans, and I was hopeless again. And so I said it out loud. I said, God, if you're real, I need you to show up. I need you to help me, because I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know how to fix this. And, several, or like probably 4 or 5 hours after I prayed that prayer, I got arrested. And I just knew it was over. I've been arrested plenty of times before, but it was this time I
It was
knew
different.
this is a response. Like, I knew it was him. And I was like, so it was weird. People talk about, oh, I bet I needed something. And so I was cool with it. I mean, I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have anywhere to go. I was homeless. So it's like, see, you saved my ass.
Yeah, and it's wild because you say that you don't believe that, right? But if you, as soon as you said that, hey, I was going to go kill myself, it was nice. I was driving on my way there, and on my way there, my tire blew out. Like, what are the odds of that? Of all times ago, you know what I mean? Like, of anything in the world, like, why then? Why at that point? And it kind of puts you in a situation where you had no choice to tell your dad, but kind of a place to, one way of getting help. Maybe that was his first attempt of reaching out to you, right? And just, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people is I said this before, is that when they talk to God, I guess they're expecting like a voice or someone to come down and trouble them and then give them the answers, but it's never going to work that way. Like I'm strong believer that if you have to keep your eyes and your ears open and look at your environment, because your environment will put you in those
Yeah.
places, right? He's not going to come down and tell you that. There's plenty of times too where I've said, hey, you know what? Um, I remember I was telling my wife, I was doing t-shirts at one point. I was like, man, like I can't, like if like I need to know if this is the right thing that I'm doing, right? If I'm on the right path, like I need to know, because I just got to give up. I think this is stupid. And we're out having lunch, and I look up, and this guy wearing some custom gear that I made walked right in there, and just was standing there. I'm like looking up, and I'm like, what are the odds of that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just right here, right now. And even when it comes to my show on my podcast, like, hey, am I supposed to be doing this right? Like, and these doors open up, he puts me in these positions, and I'm able to take these opportunities. Like that sixth grader that I met that day, I wasn't supposed to go to that school originally. The guy called me up,
Mhm.
and he was like, hey, can you do another school, because somebody had a death in their family and they can't go do this program for me? Can you go cover? So I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to share those stories with these kids. I was supposed to get him to open up, and have that moment, and
Right.
then give them a piece of advice. I needed to be there. Like they needed me here to have that. There was another time when I share the story all the time. I was debating which Wendy's I was gonna go to, and I decided to go to the one up north. And I get on the highway, and there's a lady there walking with a baby in the middle of the rain with a flat tire. Nobody else around. A cop just left, and I'm like, "What happened?" What the cop said? He's like, "If I don't move my car, it's gonna get towed." So he put me here because I need to change this tire. Like I need to help this lady out because nobody else is gonna do it. Like, what are the odds? And later on, I find out that that lady was a recovering addict herself. She was going through a hard time and things like that. And, God was helping her in a way like, hey, you're going to be okay. Like, don't worry about it. Someone's going to be here to help you. And he put me
Right.
there. So if
Yeah.
you don't keep your eyes and ears open, you will never hear him. You'll never see him. He's constantly giving you messages and ideas and information. But if you close yourself to the fact of that possibility, you're never going to hear it and get the things that you need to do.
Yeah. And I think maybe I don't think maybe, I know that things happen and people experience like miracles and
Mm-hmm.
crazy stuff. But I also agree with you 100%. We should not be waiting for something like that. Like we
Right.
should be looking to the people close to us for him to speak through them. And that's another thing that's important to create your surroundings. Like you handpick your surroundings. The people in your life, you chose them. You
Mm-hmm.
chose them. You didn't get issued them. You chose it. You allow it. Those are the people you want in your life. And if you really don't, then your behavior needs to say differently. Like you
Right.
need to get them out of your life. And those people, if you have people who are shut off from God, you're probably not going to hear much from him because you're going to be hearing whatever they're saying, which is just noise. And so I'm a big believer, and I want people around me who are connected to God so that God can talk to me through them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear from God.
Yeah, and you got to keep yourself open to the fact. Now, I know that must have really been heartbreaking. And you said you and your brother saying he doesn't want you around his newborn daughter and things. Because for me,
Yeah.
that my niece, I always say this, my first niece was born. That was a moment I realized I needed to be a father. Right, and there's something about children because they're innocent, there's a pure, there's unconditional love, right? So whatever, and that was the same thing is like I seen my niece, she saw me for who I am. And then maybe for him, like, hey, I don't want to see this and be like an imprint and somebody she cares about and say this is okay behavior. So when you're able to change, like, how, at what point did he accept you back in, or has he allowed you to go be there with her and she spend time with her? Like, when did that turn around? If it has,
Yeah. Well, so I was arrested before she was born. She was born while I was in jail. And so when I got out, I was able to meet her. And I've been this way ever since. So, we've never really had to worry about it, which has been nice. My nieces and nephews and my son have never seen me messed up. And,
awesome.
God willing, they never will. So, yeah, that was the one and only conversation. Well, I mean, he came to visit me and, we talked, but that was the only or the last time he had to talk to me that way. After that, um, I had changed. I had changed my mindset and I had changed my approach. And so I didn't need to be told like that anymore.
I can understand it from a certain perspective because I know when my daughter was born and I had my kid, and that's another part. Like I said, I had to start developing things that I wasn't going to allow and start really carving my own path, right? So a lot of those times when it's stuff, my family would be like, "Oh, why aren't you staying here till later?" I was like, "Nah, I have a strict routine. She has to be in bed by 7 o'clock. Like this is my thing with my lifestyle." And I go, and I got a lot of heat for it at first, and people were like kind of criticized, like, "Oh, like you're so different, and why are you not doing this?" Like because this is what I gotta go, and I kind of deal with that flack. And then they would tease me. I'm like, yo, I gotta go. This is what it is. But now they're sitting there and they're like, oh, how come your daughter is like, she wakes up in the morning and makes her bed and that she's not because she's not tired. She's not up at 2, 7, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning doing
Yeah.
whatever. Like I have her in bed. I have a strict routine with her. Like I developed it. That took me 6 long years of following a very strict routine and going against the grain of what my family thought to do that. And that was part of the reason too when I would leave these events because I didn't want my daughter to see that other side of these people once the alcohol kicked in and all that stuff and that ugly side of it because I seen how that phased me. And I'm like, I need to
Yeah.
protect my daughter as much as I can and shield her from this because I don't want her to do that. And I want to be able to guide her into what's going on, without the chaos, right? And all this and stuff, and now having her feel a certain way to certain people in the family or whatever because I know better and it sucks, but they had to learn to respect that, and then they do now. So when I'm like just now when I was leaving, I was like, yeah, I'm going home. My sister just got to my mom's house, but I was like, hey, I've been here for a long time. I'm going home. It's 6 something. They got to be in bed, and tomorrow's a new day. We'll be back tomorrow, but this is my routine. And now they understand that. So I can see that from his point of like wanting to protect them because
Yeah.
they're innocent. They're so impressionable. They're like sponges. Then I know for you, like you said, you've got married, right? And then your wife has a 12-year-old son. How was that relationship between you and him growing, and how did you guys grow or develop a bond?
And that was scary for me because I've never had any children. And like I have nieces and nephews, but I'm not like a kid person. Like I've never been a little kid person. Like I talk to them like they're grown. And sometimes people are like, hey man, you can't just like it's a problem. Like, hey, how are you? And so I had to I had to lighten up. And so I prayed a lot about that stuff because one of the things that I was most afraid of was I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to love him. So
Mm,
I was in love with his mom, and it hadn't. We're going through this relationship. I understand, what comes with it. I understand that, but I didn't love him, and so I didn't know how. I was like, well, and because we had been careful about that part of the relationship to
mm,
make sure that this is for real before, because I didn't want to hurt him. And so, anyways, um, I was afraid I wouldn't love him like I loved his mom. Like how am I? I don't know. I just didn't know, and so I prayed a lot about that, and I just said, God, I asked him to help me be available, and so I said, I'm willing, and I want to be able to love him, but I don't know how. But here I am. I'm available. So if you can do that for me, and what he did was the way that prayer was answered was he worked through Bryce, who's my son, because he he opened up to me and he started loving me, and so it was just natural for me to respond to that
right.
with loving him back. And so like we had a couple of moments in the first year where he broke down, and I was the only one there, and like it was just how things happened, and helping him accomplish stuff, and you know putting disciplinary stuff in place with someone who we're just getting to know each other like this, but this is the way things have to be, and this is so all of that stuff. It's just been amazing though. It couldn't have gone better, and I'm really fortunate and we're really blessed that it went that way. So he and I are very close, and we spend a lot of time together, and he's just really cool.
No, that's amazing, and I could definitely understand from that aspect. Now, if you don't mind me asking, then is his father involved, or you have to co-parent with that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so his dad lives in, so we live about 3.5 hours away. So that he works a lot, and his mom's primary parent, so he's here most of the time. But yeah, we know each other, we get along. He's just here most of the time, and so that was the thing is he and I, his dad and I talked, during that transition, and I was like, hey, you know, I just want to be, I just want to be, I'm trying to think of the words I used. I just remember it's like, I'm here to help. So I'm not trying to replace anybody. I'm not trying to get in the way. I'm a new role, like I'm a new role in this company, and I'm just trying to be supportive and do good at this job, not do anybody else's job. I'm just trying to do my job. And what does that look like for everybody? And how can I be a positive addition,
That's
And
amazing.
so we were cool. And he was honestly, um, he said some things. He was like, you're going to be this. And so I took that, and I was honored that he would, give me that role. And so I've taken it. I've stepped into that because that's my job. And I'm grateful to be in this position. I'm grateful to know how to do it. And I love it. It's fun. So, that has worked out just fine.
Now, I definitely understand where you're coming from. Like you said, you're afraid of love and, not being able to love him and things, because I've asked myself that question too. And for me, I couldn't do it. Like I was like looking at it, I was like, I don't know. I couldn't be with somebody with a kid for a couple of those reasons, right? Number one, when it came to disciplinary or things like that, it's like, where do I really accept my role, right? Because I've seen so in the through like the TVs and all that stuff, the whole baby mama drama and all that stuff. So there's all this negative stuff like, oh, don't talk to my kid, that's my son, and you can't say. So then it's like you're kind of creating that divide. Does that really happen? And then the other part for me was really scary is that I knew that I really, really wanted my own kids. I wanted my kids. And I just was in the mind, I was like, if I'm with somebody who already has a kid and then we have a kid together, would I love my kid more because he's actually mine, or would I pay favorites unintentionally? And I was like, I don't want to put myself in that situation to hurt anybody, because that's not fair to the kids. Because from my, I seen the other side of that with I have a brother, and in between me and my sister, he has a different mom. But my mom has always been great. They've always had a very great relationship. My brother came and visited us, and we used to hang time. We never seen any malice or any of those problems. It was a wonderful co-parenting environment. But I was just so terrified of that. And I think I was the biggest thing that really scared me was that if I were to have somebody, because I knew I wanted kids so badly of my own, that if we actually had kids together, would I love them more than your kid? And I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings or put anybody in that situation, you know.
Mhm.
Now for you, as you're saying that, like, I don't know, like you're not a kid person. You never really has that changed now having him, that you kind of want your own kids, or like where's your mentality when it comes to that now?
When I said I'm not a kid person, I love kids. I'm just not really good at it. Like I, for some reason, I don't know. I just never have been. But I've gone back and forth, and I actually tried to. It was I was very serious about having a child with someone at one time in my life, and I've gone back and forth, and we've talked about it. Right now, it's just not what we're planning on doing. Um, so that piece is kind of, we talk about it and we discuss it, and so it's a possibility, but we don't know. The other thing you asked about, the disciplinary thing, does it cause that divide? The rules in our house and the rules at his dad's house are different. We don't allow the things that they allow over there, and that's fine. We've even talked about it, but the fact is, we're not going to tell them how to operate in their household. And what we do here, the best thing I can do for him, my son, is to explain to him why we do everything. Every
Mm.
single
Yeah.
rule we have in this house, he understands exactly why we do it. He knows exactly why. He knows what it benefits. He knows that if he doesn't do it, what happens. And so a lot of times he experiences that. I let him experience consequences. Sometimes I have to let him screw up or go against what we've learned to do, and let him experience that. And so a lot of the things that in the beginning he didn't like, he then saw the benefit from later. And he was like, dang, it, he started getting a smirk on his face when I would, remind him or correct him. He'd just be like, I know, because he knows. And
Right.
so the other thing is, there's been no, I'm fortunate. I came in to this situation when he was already, when we met, he was like 8, 9. and said, there's been no, in our household, for me, there's been no physical discipline.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the relationship he and I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even go there. That's not even in my mind. All right. That means that I need to be very, very tactful with
Mm-hmm.
my words. And I need to be very careful with how I say things and what I say. And so he and I have developed a really good relationship because at the stage in life where we met, we have nothing but communication through that. So I've got to figure out. So it's been real cool. Um, and so I explained I need what before this. I've been a supervisor and I've coached people and I sponsor guys and I mentor people. And so I'm a big believer in whoever's with you and on your team, they better understand the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also that book will tell you a lot about this too. They need to understand the mission, understand why they should believe in the mission, understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so I've done that with him. I've explained everything. I've explained why I say what I say and why I do the things I do.
That is huge. 'Cause I do the same thing with my daughter, right? And I'm very
Yeah.
open with my kids if I make a mistake or if I do something, and I try to keep that open dialogue because my mom did that with me. Like me and my mom have a very open line of communication. Even with my dad, like I'm not gonna talk to my parents about anything. And it's because they kept that line of communication and understanding. And I think that's what's even more so right. Look at my daughter when we do create rules and things like that or different things, the explaining the why. Right, that whole because I said so doesn't fly. It's never gonna work because it's just like that's so stupid. Like, but when they understand, like, this is why I need you to do this, right? This is why I say this because this is going to happen. And if you don't, then this is what it is. And when they understand, like a lot of times, the kids they just want to be a part of your life, right? And you get them involved, and you want to do those things, and then you teach them, and it's just so much easier to keep them involved. And then it just makes everything else like my daughter is I think when my daughter sees that I'm disappointed or I'm unhappy or like I'm upset, like with those behaviors, I feel that that's more hurtful to her than me being giving her a physical discipline. You know what I mean? Like than spanking her or anything like that. Like the fact that she disappointed her father or let her parents down is punishment enough. You know, when she sees that and she's remorseful and she's like, all right, I need to learn how to do better, and it's worked, and it's that's what's working for us, you know, and I'm glad to see that, you know, that you do that with that with your son too, and it works. And I think that that's trying to find that new line of parenting because for us it was like because I said so, do this, and then that's it. Like, don't worry about
Yeah.
it, you know. And that kids are curious, they want to know, and then when you tell them like no, don't do it, and you don't tell them why, they're gonna want to figure out and find out why.
Yeah. And there are certainly situations where I have to say, you're not getting it. You're going to have to trust me. So,
Right,
but that's different than because I said so, you know.
right, right,
Some
right,
of it's like, hey, you just don't get this. but,
right,
um,
right.
and that's fine too. But I agree with you 100%.
Now, you know, going down this avenue that you're in, right, and helping all these people, and with your athletic lifestyle program that you started there, um, well, for people who don't know, right, how do they get involved, or like how or is it that you reach out to these schools, or is it that people who are in these situations can they come to you and for help? 'Cause I know you said you're really looking for people who really need the help, right, like who are in these really bad
Sure.
situations.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in a recovery program. So, people in Dallas, Fort Worth, if they need support, just trying to get sober or something like that, they can reach out to me on social media. Um, Elevated Lifestyle Academy, we do case management. We provide support for the entire family, and they can go to the website Elevated Lifestyle Academy and check that out and see if that's something that's certainly for people who families who really need some support. And so I don't think um, the other thing that I do, so if it's a school or somebody who wants to reach out, I speak. And so I'm always up for getting involved and doing things like that. Or if they have ideas for outreach, especially in Dallas, Fort Worth, certainly I'd love to talk about that stuff. But if anyone who needs support for their teenage son, their young adult son, or a set of parents who just don't know how to deal with a loved one who's dealing with addiction and things like that, I encourage them to reach out, check out the website, social media, kind of get an idea of what we do. And they can reach out to me directly. I'd love to have a conversation with anyone.
And what you said, one thing that you said that I think is so huge. Like you said, we provide help for the families too, right? Because addiction doesn't just impact that one person, right? Like I've seen that too, like with
Right.
my uncle, and seeing that addiction and now that impacted me, and just the pain of seeing where he is now, and even with the family, and you just have that fear, you don't know it. It's so much more. It affects everyone, and if people don't know how to learn how to deal or you know handle those situations, it could be very bad. So, what are some of those things like that for people other than the addict, the person having the problem for the families? What are some of the things that they kind of go through and that you kind of help with?
So one of the options for support that we offer is it's a case to case monthly basis, and I'm basically an advisor. I call it a treatment advisor, and I'm basically on call for the family, and I help them navigate through the situation. So I get a lot of families who call me and they say, "Hey, he's gotten arrested, or we found this in his room." Or he got kicked out of school, or we just found out that he hasn't gone to class the entire semester. We don't know what's going on. So, okay, let's develop a relationship. Let's start working together. So, we'll talk once a week, but I'm also on call. So, things happen every day when you're
Mm-hmm.
living like that. And so, when things happen and you don't know what to do, they'll call me. And so, we start developing a relationship, and I start developing an understanding for what's really going on. And from there, I can make treatment suggestions and then say, okay, here's the next step. And here's what I would do in this situation. Here's what we should do. Sometimes that looks like additional support from us, where we start working with their son. And that's where one of our coaches would start working with them in person on an individual basis every week. We do nutrition plans. We do workout plans. We get them connected to the recovery community. We help them find their place in that. We help them connect with sponsors. We help them connect with clinical support for the moms and dads and for the individual suffering. So we just wrap our arms around the whole family and provide whatever's needed. But we start as light as me remote services. I'm on call. Like it starts that way, and we can go as far as we need to, and even do interventions and stuff like that, and do placement, transport, get them to treatment safely. So everything really. But that's how it starts. Is they just give me a call and we start talking about what's going on.
All those services are huge because I mean, seeing some of these kids in New York and in the different areas who are going through these problems, right? They're in situations where they may not be able to get to the treatment center or can afford certain things or get help or go things. So being able to get them there to these locations and provide those assets is just helping those individuals who won't be able to do that, right? And not allowing these ones to fall through the cracks, right? Through these
Right.
little things that could really damage them. Now, how long have you been doing this now?
3 years professionally. Before that, I had another career, and so it was voluntarily. So I spent a lot of time working inside treatment centers around where I was living at the time, and worked with the individuals and families like that. And I saw the need, um, recognized that I had the skills to do it, and I love doing it. So I had the passion, had the skills, got some experience, and saw that there was a real need for it. And that's when I started. I started the business, and started really working with people, more intimately, I guess you'd say.
Mhm. And I definitely understand, the passion behind it too, because for me, one of my biggest fears, like I always say, is being forgotten, right? And the reason is like, I don't want to go through this whole world and live my entire life and not leave an impact on somebody, right? I want to be able to help it and be able to make sure that I was able to be positive and influence on someone. So seeing these things and with these kids and being able to help. I remember teaching one of these little kids on my block how to count, and just even up till now, recently doing my first podcast club and being able to build a bond with a kid and having him get emotional is great, and a huge feeling of satisfaction. Now, through your times doing this, is there like a moment or a story or somebody that you can remember that really left like, man, like this was amazing. I'm so glad that I was able to impact this person.
Every single family, every single family we work with is one of those experiences, and they
Mm,
don't always go how you want them to go. Um, yeah, there's a couple of guys that stand out, um, because I develop relationships with these young men, and I care about them. It's not. This is not just like work. It's just not. And I understand that because that's challenging at times
Right,
because you
right.
really care about these are real people and real families, and you love these people.
No, I think that's
there's
an absolutely beautiful answer because you know, what I mean, that just shows the passion behind it, right? Like it's not that, oh, and it's great to have those stories, but I think it shows that not one person values more than the other. Like this is an individual case; they're unique in their own place, and I'm going to value them for what it is. So I think that's absolutely beautiful, and that just shows that you are really doing what you need to do, and you're in the right place, right? It's not work, it's not a commitment, like it's a passion, it's a drive. And to be able to help, you know, a family every single time you do that, I think it's absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy that you get to do that and live your passion now. We're winding down here. Like I said, I'd like to keep it within the hour. So I have like two questions for you, man. It's been absolutely wonderful. And hopefully we can do this again, man. So as I'm wrapping
yeah.
it up now, like for you and the challenges that you've been through, right? And seeing um all the people that came in and out of your life, what has been the best piece of advice you've received?
The best piece of this, the best piece of advice I've ever received. And I'm going to go back to what I said before. If you look for ways to contribute, and if you look for ways to help others, and you do that before looking for what's in it for you, you're going to find happiness. You're going to find purpose.
Beautiful. Now, so I mean, it's kind of maybe signed up as the last question, but I guess looking at well, if you had to look at your son now, right? And I think we'll kind of make it a little bit more connection there for him now. Um, Looking at with him, what's one piece of advice? You know, if you could give him one thing that you really want to hold on to, what would that be?
Everything you need is right here. Everything you need is right here. We're always looking for external changes in our external circumstances. We're always looking for other people to validate us. We're always looking for things to make us feel better, or a job to define who I am. And no, it's right in here. You know, when you look inward and you work on this and you work on this, um, that's where it is.
Dude, I love you for that one, man. That is amazing. I try to. That's something that I want to associate with my daughter too. I just always want her to be in control of her own feelings and be happy with herself. I think that is the moment, right? You are truly happy with who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I think it's just a complete enlightenment because nothing else can phase you. No matter what people say or what's going on, you live through your life. You can do and say and act as you please because you are completely content with who you are as a person. You're not sitting here like trying to be at a restaurant and like, oh, do I got something in my face? What if somebody's looking at me? Like, am I being too loud? Like, is this clothes like what? It's exhausting. It is exhausting living like that. So for me, that's why I say like one of my people who I love the most and one of my biggest idols has had to be Dennis Rodman because he was so him,
Yeah.
just him, and I envied that. I'm like, yo, how could you be so carefree that like people just refer to you? It's Dennis being Dennis. Like you're acting like yourself. Like I would love people for say that like to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when you have to instill with these kids young, right? Because the moment they get out into the real world and they start attacking them, and if they're not prepared for that, it's going to be a horrible experience, right? And that's what I keep telling my daughter, like, I need you to love you for you and be okay with you and be happy, and don't allow anybody to make you feel a certain way or you think it's certain different. Like, if you want to eat the same sandwich every single day, doesn't matter what they say, they not the ones that got to eat it. You got to eat it. You
Right.
don't want to enjoy it, so be happy with it. You know.
Right.
So, dude, it's been absolutely amazing, man. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to see you and see the passion because your last question, man, is shows really, really the type of person that you are, and you really care for other people. You really want to make that work out there for you, man. So, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me. Thank you for being, dude. I'm just glad to be here. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll talk more. Like I said, I'm trying to do some more things out there, man. But now that I have some connections and have somebody like you that's been through there and really knows that to talk to these kids is so much more when people can actually live through and share experience of what it's like, because that's really where you make that impact, right? Where you really make that connection. If people can't relate to you, like you said, you can give them all the information in the world, you can give them the best books, the best everything. If they can't relate, if they're not listening, they're never going to use it, and it's not going to go anywhere. So,
Absolutely.
you know, unfortunately had to go through those things, but like you said, God put you through those things and you had to go through that fire to be the man that you are today. And by the conversation we're having and what you're doing, man, you're one hell of a man that you became despite of everything that you've been through. I tell everybody, right, when it comes to this, you know, every angel has a past, just like every demon has a future. Right. So don't take it lightly, right? We all came from somewhere and we can all do great things if we really have that passion and drive. And you're living proof of it, man. So thank you so much for everything you do, Neal.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Freddie. Thank you for having me, dude.
Absolute talk always. And as I always say, everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, your big brother loves you. Stay blessed, everyone.